Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Green Arrow FPL podcast from Fantasy Football Hub as we look ahead to double game week 37. Finally, it's double game week fever, and we have all got the bug. My name is Fergi, and I'm here with the brilliant Rich Clarke. Rich, how are you? And what colour was your arrow in game week 36?
Evening, Fergie. Evening, everyone. It was great, actually. I had a really good week in the end. Massive green arrow, and I've halved my rank in 2 weeks, I think, or 100k off my rank in 2 weeks, something like that.
Very nice.
Halve my rank in 3 weeks, I think. So really pleased, and yeah, pretty much apart from I think Edison and a late goal from Burnley against Newcastle, it was a full house for me. Certainly, some of the wildcard picks are really starting to pay off now. So the likes of Jackson, suddenly we were laughing at a few weeks ago, suddenly he's really come good, and a 16-pointer. My bench jam came from Anthony Gordon. I had a benching headache, and I chose to bench Gordon, which didn't look good halfway through the game, halfway through their 4-0 win. I think he got the assist for the penalty that Isak missed. So I was thinking I'd made a bit of a mistake by benching him, but in the end, Bruno's surprising no-show against Crystal Palace meant that, pretty much everybody got some bench jam who wildcarded in game 35. So overall, 108 points. Small, it wasn't an error, with Edison playing. You'd always play Edison at home to Wolves over Petrovic, wouldn't you? But, again, City conceded late. But on the whole, last week was all about not really getting any more injuries, really, rather than points, because we're now heading into, the week we've all been building towards, whatever chip we played. And it's about counting up your walking wounded, isn't it? Going into this weekend and seeing how many fires you got to put out. So thankfully I got through last weekend without too many more casualties. The late Harry Maguire emerging very late before
Late time Maguire
for the deadline. Yeah,
wasn't that bad.
That added to a lot of people's woes. For it just equalised out my Ben Davies flag, really. So I've got a defensive flag to put out with Ben Davies. I'm still hopeful on Bruno, but I don't think he trained today.
Okay.
That's what certainly what social media is saying. So that's looking like a decision that's got to be made there on Bruno Fernandes. But yeah, pretty optimistic. I've sort of recalibrated my targets on optimistic or hoping that I can make up those last 41,000 places and at least get a 5-figure rank to end the season. Anything on top of that will be a bonus, really, for me.
That'll be your 19th consecutive top 100k finish. Then that'll be the flag.
Yeah,
I
just want to not finish in the outside the top 100k would be nice. Brilliant. Yeah, to never have done that. Yeah, keep that going. Yeah,
definitely. And I've got the gavel out because you want to appeal your wildcard potential spaff or mare based on your last 2 weeks, and it's hard to argue. I've got to be honest, Rich, because not only have you, as you say, halved your rank or nearly halved your rank, you don't have to take any hits this week to get out a really solid 15 bench boost. So I'm in favour, if the chat is, in upgrading your spaffometer to a smash for your wildcard.
Thank you very much.
Played it really
I'll
well.
gladly accept that verdict unless the chat thinks otherwise. I mean, there's been a lot of really great scores out there. I think my team's done well, but by no means has it, gone non-template or anything like that. And certainly people who could add Gvardiol into that mix on wildcard, that was the right way to go over Edison, and Richarlison was the right way to go over two Tottenham defenders. So there are better teams out there. But I'm happy with the way it's gone, and certainly we're still strong going into this big week. So hopefully more green arrows to come.
Well done, mate. In the chat, Blessing Oseri had 123 -4. Saw some huge scores this week. Welcome everyone in the chat before we move on to my team quickly. Oberis is in. FPL Big Head, FPL Jelly says, is anyone not on bench boost? I think there's quite... Didn't you say, Rich, that 80% of engaged managers still haven't played their bench boost last week? Is that what you...
Yeah, I think if you look at the top sort of 500k, top 250k brackets, there's around 80% of the game still have a bench boost left to play. So yeah, pretty much everyone who's interested is going to...
Big old week
is going to keep... is going to be playing it this weekend. And I think I read somewhere as well that before transfers, the average number of players in the top 10K, in the top 100K, the average number of double game week players in a squad at the moment is just under 11.
Wow.
So that means with one or two transfers, that average is going to go up to 12 or 13.
Tell you what, mate,
So
the advantage has dissipated over the years. It's getting to a point now where even playing good FPL is not good enough anymore. You have to play great FPL to get to get a green arrow nowadays, don't you?
Yeah.
But I really like that personally because I just see it as a challenge. What's the point in like a bench boost before, regardless of how it did, would have got a green enemy, wouldn't it? Whereas now, I'll be taking a massive
because you remembered it was a double game week.
Exactly that. But that edge is gone now. It really.
No, I think so.
It really has.
I think so, yeah. And that did surprise me. That is a lot of teams with a lot of doublers already. So I think the only hope for me is I've seen a lot of teams out there with a lot of flag players and a lot of injured or non-playing, non-starting players. So just a lot of the gain this week might come from just not taking any hits. So we'll see.
I say on the verge of a minus
Onto
12.
your team.
Yeah, just I'll finish. Welcome in the chat first. Jan Kalioski, Claire FPL, Cedric Levy, Felix Obama says Richarlison. Good evening, guys. A big fan of Richarlison there. Fabio Elalami, Tony Cunliffe, Immortal Technique, Wayne Patton, Belfast Brunch, FPL Freddy, Ian Parrin is in asking a question. We'll have a look at that now. Maguire definitely, and possibly Bruno out. And Gusto with only one free transfer. Hits galore. We'll talk about hits next. Cedric is in. FPL Fred. You've had a couple of... you've had one objection, my lord, of FPL Big Head, but you have had a couple of smashes as well. So we will see. Onto my team, had a decent week actually, decent rank rise. I took a hit, so I can't remember who my second transfer was, but I brought in Gvardiol, which was obviously nice. He was unlucky as well. I don't know if you watched the game, Rich, but he's very attacking.
I think I was joking. He seemed like he was on some sort of substance, didn't he? He was charging around all over the place.
You can't make accusations like that, Rich.
He was a man possessed, wasn't he? He was just literally on everything. He looked incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, so he was
like watching Salah.
Clean sheet for Gabriel. I didn't have a clean sweep because I didn't have Jackson. I did have Mateta. I was disappointed in the end, only to get 6 points. If you remember last week, I was quite excited about owning Mateta against United, and so it proved 4-0. Obviously, at least he was the one who got the points, but it could have easily been Mateta. But he has been brought off early twice now, like 68 minutes. So I'll be getting rid this week, I think. But yeah, pretty well set up for next week, though I am 4 transfers short of where I want to be. So given my rank of 400k, certainly not afraid of taking a risk. So at the moment, I'm kind of eyeing up a minus 12, 6 million in the bank, lots of options. I'm sure we'll have a chat about that.
Lots of options
in a second. But yeah, exciting stuff. And yeah, if we just take a quick look at the top of the fixture ticker now, obviously only 3 games left for some teams, only 2 games left for most teams. But I would guess that the majority of our transfers this week will be focused on Spurs at top of the ticker. They got Burnley and Sheffield United, 2 of the last 3. It's obviously superb fixtures. Brighton got 2 home games as well. One against Man United, which at the moment you have to say is as good as it
gimme,
gets.
It's
an absolute gimme.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Man City, Fulham, Spurs away is also a gimme from an attacking view as well, and then West Ham as well at home. My goodness me, I wish I'd gone for De Bruyne. We were talking about him. He was my differential a couple of weeks ago. Like these last 3 fixtures are set up really well, aren't they? For
they are. But if you're sitting on De Bruyne now, I wouldn't move him certainly. But he's difficult to get to for people.
He is.
If they've already got already sitting on strong midfields and stuff. So yeah, he could be a move off Bruno if you decide Bruno's not worth holding out for. But you'd have to have a spare City slot, and I think most people have already got their 3. So Good luck if you've got him, because it was on my birthday a couple of years ago that I got a 60-pointer, I think, off Kevin De Bruyne in game week 37.
I
So
remember that.
lightning could strike in the same place
I
twice,
remember
Fergie.
that
You
because
never
I
know.
captained
Yeah.
Salah. I don't think even like own you and Adam both Hail Mary captained him. And he absolutely scored. I don't think he's ever scored a hat trick before, and he scored four.
Four goals in the first half, yeah, against Wolves.
Superb.
Yeah.
Man United,
Fantastic.
Chelsea, and Newcastle also double in 37. But just a bit first race, just about tactics and kind of what we should be thinking about overall over the next few weeks. Couple of things which I'm definitely looking at game week 38 as well, and it's definitely affecting my transfer thoughts and plans. It's all very well going all in this week, but then if you kind of leave yourself, a bit short on 38, it can be quite short-sighted, can't it? So which are the players you're kind of including or excluding, given 38, Rich? What's you kind of thinking there?
Well, I mean, I think this is where, team form is really important. If you look at the teams who are playing well, who are going for something, Newcastle are now back to their form from sort of game week 5 or 6, where they were thrashing teams 4-0, 5-0 every week. They're rising up again. So Trippier could be back this weekend. He's definitely one to watch, and they could. They're going to go really well. So Chelsea are now playing their best football of the season. Suddenly discovered something with the formation that they've got, and the makeup of the defense looks better. So Chelsea have hit some form. City and Arsenal obviously both still going for the title. They're going to just go full tilt until that situation changes. But that situation could change if there's a shock result in Saturday and Sunday's games, or in the City game against Spurs. But just on sheer form of their opponents, the opposite is true of Tottenham and Man United, who have a say in the title race. So therefore they look, Tottenham lost 4 on the bounce. Manchester United, were just appalling against Crystal Palace. So you cannot see those teams turning that form around and beating or even getting a point against Arsenal or City. So I do think the title will go to game week 38. And so therefore you can rely on those players, starting in the last week, which if there is a shock result this week in game week 37, you might be faced with a team full of, Phil Fodens, KDBs, who might not start. They might get a rest before the cup final, for instance.
Exactly. The cup final is the one after, isn't it? So, so if
that's right.
If United do manage to hold Arsenal, we could be a lot different come game week 38 in terms
which is why the sage advice is, if you somehow have sailed your ship through these choppy waters of injured and flagged players, if you can take 2 free transfers into game week 38, that is a very nice position to be in. But it is probably the luxury of someone with a completely healthy team and someone with a very healthy rank who is happy to bench boost this week with healthy players and just wants the flexibility of those 2 free transfers to get over the line in the last week. I think if you're chasing like I am, like you are, it's so tempting to use those 2 transfers to take a couple of punts, isn't it? You've got to try and get someone with a low ownership in, I think.
So talking of low ownership, Hail Marys, Rich, we won't talk about the specific players yet. We'll talk about them in a minute, but the power of low ownership is something you want to talk about. And your Evan Ferguson punt in the end of last season was testament to how impactful they can be.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look a little bit deeper into the effect, there's an app a lot of guys use called FPL Gameweek. I think it shows the percentage of your points of a player's points that you get. If depending on how well owned they are, it's a nice graphic in there. And just if you look at a player that no one else owns and you see 100% of their points next to their name, whether it's a mini league or chasing or just an overall rank, you will gain those points on the people in your rank tier or in your mini league. And so if you've got someone who's next to 0% owned. I think Richarlison's still on a very low ownership percentage. But someone like the other week, I brought in Ben Davies on the wild card because he was 0.4% owned, and he started off by getting an assist, albeit a lucky one through a kick in the goalies or whatever. But he was that assist was worth 3 points, which was effectively worth someone who's a 33% purge. It was worth the same as them getting a 9-pointer in terms of the impact to your rank. So bring in somebody if you're chasing who is fairly low owned, rather than, I think this is going to come up with your team later, because you said you were tempted to bring in Jackson and Isak, who are great players, but when everybody else around you owns them, I'm not sure it's going to make that much difference to you, So we'll see. But yeah, low ownership is definitely one way to do it. And then take some risk. How brave is someone going to be this week going against the Haaland captaincy, after he just put 4 goals away last week? But again, if that doesn't go right and he does have a bad week, maybe limps off halfway through the first half of the first
game, which we always see in double game weeks.
Yeah, and you're on Sonny, or you're on someone else who's high upside, Isak, for example, Palmer. You that's the way to make up a quick 30-40 points on your target. So if you've got nothing to lose, be brave. I mean, I'm going to bring in some differentials for sure, but I'm also trying to stay in a couple of important leagues. I'm trying to get retain some decency of rank. So I'm not going to go too mad, but you've just got to gauge how mad you want to go, I guess, and go for that. But single game weekers are fine this week, but make sure that they're going to start. If they're a risky single game weeker, might not get selected. I think they're probably worth taking out. But if you've got someone who's got a good fixture and is going to start the game, then it's fine to have half a dozen single game weekers in your team.
And finally, just on hits then, because a lot of people will be looking at their team this week, myself included. I've got 4 players who I don't want. I could play a couple of them, like Solanke is home to Brentford, who I think it's all right. But then you've got players like I don't know Isaac, I don't know Jackson, João Pedro, and you just think. And Solanke he's like it feels like he's like scoring every other week at the moment, or 1 in 3, which is all right, but he's never gonna. It doesn't feel like at the moment he's threatening like like a brace or a massive haul, whereas the forms with other players they are. So and obviously also thinking ahead, as I say, to game week 38 as well. So at the moment, if I want to remove those 4 players and replace them with double game week players and those who play in 38, I've got to take a -12, which I don't feel too bad about, because I do think this will be a high scoring week, and and obviously in the context of everything, if I can score 150 points, I would 138 -12 in the obviously in the context of how everyone scored. It doesn't feel that bad compared to, and this is what I've done before. I haven't done it because I've tried to be reserved, and I end up scoring like 89 without a hit, and everyone else on 130 -8 or whatever else. So I think I'm going to go for it, given my position especially.
I think you can go for it and enjoy it. But just make sure you're buying high upside players for those hits. I mean, if you're taking a hit to get in, I don't know, Adam Webster or something like that, for Ben Davies, which is a transfer I've considered doing. I mean, it's not that exciting, is it? I'm just going to roll 2 free transfers and get Adam Webster in. That's not exactly what you're going for, is it? Really? So I just think have some fun with it and get in some players that have got good fixtures, good doubles, and hopefully a playable fixture in game week 38 as well. Because if you strip too many, I think Brighton, for instance, they've got a nice figure playing Man United on the last day.
We say it's a bit of a gimme at the moment. So
absolutely. So yeah, that's definitely got to be worth looking at.
Looking at predicted points then, obviously for this week and for next week, Haaland unsurprisingly top of predicted point, 24.5. Son 19.2, Foden 18.6, Isak 18.4, De Bruyne 17.7, Palmer 17.1, Jackson 15.5, Gordon 14.8. Brennan Johnson is the first kind of low ownership player we come to there. He's still only, did have a look at it, I can't remember now. Very low own, like 3.7% own, I think. Brennan Johnson. Garnacho, 14. Bruno, 13.9. He's flagged, so if he's fit, his
is that why why is Richarlison not on here?
Richarlison isn't on there. Well, it's down to expected minutes. So if I just read out to you Richarlison's played minutes for the last 10 or so game weeks, it reads. So this is from game week 25 onwards, right? 71 injured, 10, 5, 8 injured, 89, 29.
Yeah, it's not many, is it?
It's not a lot of minutes. Is that good enough for back-to-back starts? It may be. I don't know. I think the fact he came on and had a goal and assist. I think the fact Werner's injured helps. Helps as well. But I don't know. It's not very convincing. And that's why, because
no, but in terms
of his minutes,
it's the subjectivity, isn't it? It's the subjectivity and excitement about the possibilities of those two fixtures against Burnley and Sheffield United. Anything in the City game, just a bonus, right? Even if it's just a bench appearance and a chance, but he will get chances against City at home. So I'm just surprised he didn't make the chart. I thought he might make the chart.
It's all down to his minutes. So at the moment, we've only gone down to play 30 odd minutes on average over the 3 games, just because he hasn't played. We've got nothing to kind of go off in terms of say, yep, we think he starts to the next 3, because there's nothing in the data which suggests that. However, obviously, everyone you can apply your own layer of discretion on top of that, and if you think, well, I think he's going to play, level him up and go for it. So Salah's next, 13.9. João Pedro 13.7, and then a few other players there. But yeah, I've got Garnacho, which I'm kind of happy about there. He's reasonably kind of high up on the list, obviously due to the number of fixtures, and Johnson is another kind of lowish owned one. João Pedro is the one who probably sticks out most there to me, I think, in terms of excitement, in terms of the quality of fixtures that Brighton have got. He's on pens as well, but yeah, does anything float your boat there, Rich, over those out of that list, or who else are we missing out? These are not the differentials, by the way. Obviously, these are just top.
No, they're not. No, I know. Points. I mean, they're fairly. Most of them, you start coming down the list and seeing where there's a gap in your team. I mean, De Bruyne's probably the lowest owned in the top half there. Johnson, as you mentioned, I think most people are going to avoid United on current form, certainly in terms of bringing people in. If you've got Garnacho, you've got
play. I play him because I got him, but yeah, I wouldn't be bringing him.
You play him because you got him. Don't ditch a player with a double game week, I wouldn't say, regardless of who they play for. Adingra, he's. I think we'll see him later on some of the pictures. He played really well against Villa. Yeah. He was really exciting, and the thing I like about Adingra is he's really cheap. He's like $5 million. And if you're thinking about maybe having a cheeky last fling on Mo Salah for the last week, for instance, and you want to get funds for that move in game week 38, you've only got one free transfer, then Bruno to Adingra, for instance, will free £3.5 million and give you money for a Son to Salah upgrade. So that's something to think about. Nice. That's just one that stuck out to me. Gvardiol definitely is the standout defender if you've got a City slot spare. I wouldn't start doing Lux moves I've seen a lot of teams that have no injuries at all, and so they can still contemplate the Ederson out to a different doubling keeper, and then maybe one of the injured guys like Maguire or Cher across to Gvardiol, and then they can keep that third City slot like that. But yeah, most people are blocked on bringing in a third City asset at this stage, and I wouldn't break the team up to do it. But great if you've got him.
Let's have a look at a few low-owned players, Rich, who you fancy could do well. We've got a screen of a couple up here. We've mentioned one or two. There's someone right in the middle. I don't think we've said his name all season, and now all of a sudden he's come bang into form.
All of a sudden he's Vinicius Junior, isn't he?
Exactly. Do you want to
overnight? Yeah, I
Do you
know.
want to talk us through a few of these low-owned options?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've been bemoaning Chelsea all season, but do seem to have finally found something. I expect very few changes in the lineup this weekend from the side that's won 5-0 and 2-0 respectively in the last two games. So I think Madueke is a really nice punt. I almost expected him to be in your Fergie as a punt slide this week, but yeah, really like him. I don't know a lot about him. He has been in and out of the side, but does seem to have nailed down a place and is, extremely attacking and extremely reasonably priced. I mean, with 99% ownership on Cole Palmer in the top 100K, it's going to mean absolutely nothing owning Palmer. So if you've got a third Chelsea spot to use, then he looks like a really exciting pick in the midfield. And then in the back corner, we've got possibly the guy that's going to keep Malagusto out of the side, which is Cucurella, former Brighton player who's established himself in the team. And yeah, he seems to be playing in a kind of inverted role for Chelsea, pushing forward and doing really well. So there's a couple of Chelsea guys in there. And then we've got Adingra, who I did just mention for Brighton. Again, all these guys are, very reasonably priced, and will save money, particularly if coming off a Maddison or a Fernandez, someone in the 8 million bracket. It's going to give you a nice war chest for the last week there. And then on the other side, these two guys probably are much more well known. You've got Richarlison, who I'm strongly favouring this week with Burnley and Sheffield United in the last two games. I'm pretty sure when he came on against Liverpool, Tottenham's performance, well, you're a Tottenham fan. It just suddenly went from desperate to half reasonable, didn't it? In just 30 minutes. So question over his minutes. Will he last more than 60, 70 minutes? Possibly not, but that will be enough against Burnley, I hope, to get some returns. Maybe a bench appearance against City because they might play differently. And then Sheffield United on the last day, and we all know what the last day is like. That normally that's a goal fest, whatever. So that could be 5 or 6 against Sheffield United. And then KDB, most can't get to him, but he's still a differential. So therefore, that's why I put him on there, because he is hard to get to, and he'll still get you huge gains if he goes off. What are your thoughts on that lot?
Yeah, no, I really like them. I think the Richarlison one. You talk about minutes and about being kind of sure of minutes. I'd be really hesitant because I'm thinking of, mind you, our situation is different. I'm in kind of hit mode. I'm always thinking, is it worth a -4? Is it worth a -4? Not sure Richarlison is worth a -4. I think if you get him for free, potentially like you are, I think he's worth it. But we're just not sure if he's going to play. I think we can assume he'll probably get, I don't know, maybe 120 minutes potentially over the two games, or maybe between 90 and 120. But the Madueke one, I like. He's got 28 points in the last 2 game weeks. So that's in the last 3 weeks, 12, 3, and 13. Goal and assist in 2 of his last 3 games. So he looks on for. He was brought off after 75 minutes last time, but they were leading, I think, 4-0, which is maybe why he was brought off. But he started the last 6 on the trot. He wasn't playing much before then, but that has also coincided with this run, of the Chelsea run. So I do agree with you that I think he's part of the reason for the turnaround. I think he gets minutes, so I really like that. Yeah, some really nice options there. And looking on Twitter, Rich, you found a differential team from at the FPL store. Which I've just popped up just to show a few more options, because there are a lot of options this week. And it's got Verbruggen in goal. So he and Jason Steele have been kind of swapping positions for most of the season, but Verbruggen has started. I was just having a look, actually. I think it's 6 of the last 7 for Verbruggen now. So he's pretty much, as much as he can, he's nailed that. 7 of the last 8 now he started, so he's probably number 1. Though Steele did just randomly play in game week 34, so you've got to think towards the end of the season now with nothing to play for, they may rotate. I'm not sure. Back three of Livramento. A lot on that could depend on the fitness of other players, but home to Brighton, away to Man United, really, really good fixtures there. I think we don't get the press conference, do we, from Newcastle till tomorrow with news around Trippier could be back, but Trippier's not going to play. I don't think he's going to start twice, even if he is fit. So I think Livramento could be a minute's risk, maybe. Akanji is in there. Cucurella as well. So that's like a back three, and then a midfield five. So a few we've mentioned: Richarlison and Madueke. Gross, who seemed to, to talk about a person who was on the boil and then went off the boil. It insane, really. In the last few weeks, game week 27 to 32. And just having a look, he had, even though he played the majority of the minutes, he had 0 XG in 5 of those games, and since then he's only had 0.1, 0.1, and 0.01. He did have 0.46 in the last game, but I can't get excited about him. He seems to be a streaky player, depending kind of where he plays in the team. I can't get excited about him. Gallagher looks to be really attacking. Rich, you know a bit more about me, but he seems to be up there. He nearly scored last week when he hit the bar, didn't he?
He's doing really well. He's was club captain and doing great. Yeah, very motivated at the moment, Connor. So I think could well make the Euros still.
Wow.
Could be on the edge of the squad. I mean, he's one of those peripheral picks. He's only 23, isn't it, for this summer's tournament? But I wouldn't be surprised if he makes it, especially if they finish well. So really like the Gallagher pick, and Bruno Guimaraes, very nice. I mean, it's obviously, I don't know whether he's just definitely going to go with this, and he's just being deliberately. He's got no template players in here. That's what I like about it, is that it might give some people some thought. Yeah, completely differential. And if you were free hitting this week, if you happen to have a free hit chip left, if you throw that lot at it and then 3 or 4 of them go off, you'll do better than the template, I think. So it's looks really nice. It's just I've never seen anything without any red in it.
No,
It's always full of Arsenal or United players, isn't it? It's just thought it was really nice to see one with made up of blues and blacks.
And then Wilson and João Pedro up front as well. Again, both potential really good options. So every time Wilson plays, he scores, doesn't he?
Well, there's rumours that he might have an injury. We haven't had any further confirmation of that today, I don't think. But he might be. I'm not saying I'm recommending him, but we know what happened in game week 37 with Wilson last year. Everyone piled on Isak, the minutes pick, who walked away with 4 points from the 2 games, and Callum Wilson got 48. Was it? I think. If he was captained, I think it was 24 captained, and so it was 48-4. I think it was the score or the difference, because but it was definitely the brave pick. So it's still not too late for Callum Wilson fans to do some damage.
Is the captaincy this week, Rich? Is it easy enough?
I think it's you've got to be very brave to go against Haaland unless you are chasing. I think our very own Gian tried to go different last week. Went Palmer. He was trying to chase rank. It's a tactic, but it wasn't the week to do it, and it absolutely smashed him up. So you've got to be prepared if you go different to take the fall if it doesn't work out, because you're going against the masses, and so it's very brave, and it doesn't always work out. But some people will want to just try and squeeze the maximum out of the season, and they're not worried about coming 200k or 300k. It doesn't make any difference if they fall another 100,000 places. But you get 4 goals from Haaland, and that's what will happen. So yeah, it's been brutal. It's been absolutely brutal, and I'm not surprised at the results. Palmer, I mean, Isak's probably a good choice with a home game against Brighton. I'd probably go him over Palmer if I was picking a vice. But Palmer's obviously been so consistent that I'm not surprised to see him second in the poll. But yeah, I think if I was going anyone different this week, it'd be Isak for me, I think.
Yeah, agree. I think Son with a 2 home games. I think we'd have seen a bit more from Son. I think he could have been like actual FPL output. He's playing all right. Good, back-to-back home fixtures. Expect Spurs to score against Man City, set City to win. It's at Burnley game as well, but it's so hard to look past that way. Fulham and Spurs for Haaland. I mean, Fulham away is a good enough fixture as it is, but that Spurs game as well. Even though I think we said this last year. We said last year, City have not got a point or a goal yet at Spurs' new stadium, and they still haven't after 4 attempts. So this will be the 5th attempt. Apart from the FA Cup, they won 1-0 in the FA Cup, but in the last 4 attempts, City have left the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium pointless and goalless. I think that changes.
I've got
week.
a feeling, right? I've got a feeling. I don't know which game it's going to be. There's going to be a big twist in either the United Arsenal game or the Spurs City game. All right. If we're talking about probabilities and we're talking about form and everything else that's logical and setting up our teams as such, that's all fine. But I don't think those 2 games are just going to be a walkover for Arsenal or for City. So there's going to be a twist there. I think there's going to be points drop somewhere.
Oof,
so I think it could, it could turn around. I've just got a feeling that, we're all just so quick to write off Manchester United. We're all so quick. If they bring, I don't know, if they get Martinez back, they get Bruno back, they've got a home game, 75,000 fans, and similarly Tottenham, 60,000 fans at home to City, trying to secure at least 5th, maybe outside chance of catching Villa. Just basically, I know there's this fan stuff with Arsenal, but I think they'll be trying to get the win on Thursday. So I think there'll be a twist, mate.
I love with Colin. Man City have never beaten Fulham away in May. That's a narrative. I like that. Well done, Colin. Let's move on now. And Fergie is the punt for game week 37 to 38. Yeah, I think Madueke is a really good punt. I was looking myself more at forwards. I say that Solanke, Mateta, and Isaac and Jackson. I'm just like, where can I potentially get some kind of edge? And it has been a player. He's 6% owned, 5.2 million. Good attacking fixtures, and this boy, when he's on form, when he's on a streak, he is really good. He scored a lot of goals in Europe this year. He's on penalties. He scored quite a few braces this year, and I really like him. And if I do go down the differential route, he'll definitely be one I bring in, and it is João Pedro for Brighton. They beat Villa last week. I must say, very, very surprised that they beat Villa last week, but they did. But they've got, in terms of the attacking fixtures, home to Chelsea. Okay, so it's not the best, but I'd still fancy Brighton to score personally. Newcastle, and then Man United at home in 38 as well. That's almost the one I kind of want him for. I think that's a really good fixture. So yeah, João Pedro is my differential pick of the week, and I think for the final 3 games he could do well. I think he can get sort of 3 returns over the last 3, which for a player of his price, 5.2 million, crazy cheap, 6% owned. If
nice one.
Looking.
Yeah,
but, I agree with yours, Rich. Richarlison and as well. There's a lot of options for people in it's in midfield and attack. Maybe not so much in defense. It's hard to get excited about defense.
Yeah, there's very few defensive options apart from fillers. Yeah, but you've the worst thing to do is to leave a gap in your 15, because it just takes 25% of your bench boost effectiveness away, and each player subsequently, there'll always be a surprise. There'll always be someone who won't get 2 starts or 1 start. So, but you've got to set it up with all the information to hand. So this is the week to have a healthy squad.
Oh, Belfast Bunch, I do apologise. What's the crack with the mid live stream adverts? I must have pressed the wrong button. I don't think we normally do those, so apologies for those. I will knock them off for next week. Right, Rich, we've got your very, very good looking team ahead of game week 37 in front of us. Just want to quickly run through it and tell us your plans for the week.
Okay, yeah. So I've got the 2 keepers, Ederson and Petrovic. Was a little bit worried about Petrovic on Wildcard, but that obviously Chelsea's form.
He's
I think
smashed it, haven't he? He's been
he's done really well. really well. So yeah, not worried about Sanchez coming in now. So I think Petrovic will play. Equally, I'm not worried about Ederson missing the game. I don't think until City have sewn up the league. He could be a bit of a doubt for game week 38 if they have won it by then. But Ederson should be fairly safe in goal, despite flapping it across late on and conceding late against Wolves. I think he'll be okay. Back three of Pedro Porro, Dan Burn, and Gabriel. On my bench at the moment, I have Ben White as well. I'm quite happy to play and carry through the two Arsenal guys. I've seen quite a few people swapping out one of the Arsenal defenders this week for a doubler. But again, if that's a pretty of a luxury move, if you've got nothing, no fires to put out, you could always bed and breakfast that and get him back next week. So you can just get an extra player if you want to do that. Quite a few are doing I've seen quite a few people doing White to Dunk or White to Romero, something like that to get the extra doubler. It's a decent move. But I've got Ben Davies, who only got one game in the Game Week 35 double. So he'll be going. In the midfield, I've got Son, Foden, Palmer, Gordon, and Bruno at the moment, the template power five, if you like. Bruno is the key piece of news that we're waiting on the press conferences tomorrow. I believe he didn't train today. I think I've worked out in my head what I'm going to do. If he is any sort of a doubt going into the weekend, then I'm going to sell him. Unless Ten Hag says he's trained, he's ready, he'll be available. If he says that, I think he'll play both games.
Yeah, agree.
But if he's not going to get a double game week, I'm going to bring in Richarlison. I'm almost 100% on that.
Nice.
I like that because of the game week 38 fixture. I like that because he will still be something of a differential, even if there's a late surge of ownership towards him. And I also like the fact that it gives me close to a couple of million to make a move in game week 38. So it makes it much easier to bring in a Havertz or a Saka for the last game. So it will mean me using 2 free transfers.
A nightmare for you, Rich.
I would love to have had 2 free transfers for the last week, but I think again that you have to have been quite fortunate to have got through and not have a couple of fires to put out. And there are loads out there who'll need to take hits, as you say. Your sarcastic remark there sums up the position of most fantasy managers in terms of their the number of flagged and the number of non-doubling players they have. So you're going to see plenty of hits this week, and I think most of the gain might well come from not hitting this week. So Bruno to Richarlison. Davies, I think I will go for Lewis Dunk for Brighton. I think he's got more goal threat than the cheaper defensive options. I'm not going to buy a United defender. So Dalot or whatever would be an alternative. I'm not going to double up on. I can't double up on Tottenham defense if I'm getting Richarlison. So yeah, Lewis Dunk has some goal threat. I think he's ranked about 4th out of all defenders for expected goal involvement or something. So he's definitely worth a punt for a couple of weeks. And so Dunk and Richarlison for Davies and Fernandes, my likely transfers there. And then that'll be 13 doublers plus the Arsenal boys.
Very nice, Rich. Well on track to your record. Top 100k finish. Well played. Your recommended transfers this week: White to Dunk by Have and Davis to Romero is the other one. But who is your?
Probably thinks Bruno's going to play.
He's going to play because of the points.
Yeah.
So very nice stuff there, Rich. If you want to get your own recommended transfers for your own team, go to fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. You get your team rated, and it will optimize your team for you and tell you your most optimal transfers for the coming week. My team is not bad starting 11, and then it gets a bit ropey when it comes to the bench. Seems I'm bench boosting. Chike Guna asks, do I have the bench boost? I do have the bench boost. Got Vicario, which is all right. Got Gvardiol, Burn, and Gabriel. think I'm okay with that. I've got to be every time with Gabriel. I think, oh no, you don't do. They just keep clean sheet after clean sheet after clean sheet, don't they? They're unbelievable, and his goal threat is superb as well. So, Son, Foden, Palmer, Saka has he's been a bit of a saviour for me. Ironically, he killed me when I took him out of my wild card in game week 24, 25, but lots wild carded him out, and he's kept me afloat with a 22 points in the last,
he has. It's
last
just,
two game weeks.
This exactly the same. When you wild carded, and I kept Saka and Watkins,
Exactly.
The non-wild carders were beating you, weren't they, during that period where your wild card sort of stagger unwinds? And the opposite has been true here for 35 wild carders. If they just kept Saka in their teams and not taking him out for all these doublers, they'd be doing even better. And so Saka is definitely, it's not a bad tactic to bring him in a week early, because you're going to see everybody bringing him back in on the game week 38. So actually, you've already got him. So
I agree with that, Rich. I wonder whether he could be a better pick than Richarlison. But I was going to mention it until you said about it gives you more money for next week, and I thought, okay, that's the. Yeah.
It does a little bit, but I mean, I could get Saka in. It's just that would give me a bench boost with 3 single game week players, and a doubling goalkeeper. It just give me the 3 Arsenal guys against United. But it's not a bad shout. But again, this is this assumption that United's performance against Palace is just going to be repeated in a home game. I'm not actually sure it is. If they got a few coming back, which it sounds like they have, and they're at home, they gave City a game, didn't they? They gave Liverpool a game, so they're going to give Arsenal a game. So I actually just think, it's not a guaranteed thrashing that. Arsenal might win it 2-1 or something like that, but I think Saka is tempting, but it's a transfer better made next week from an upside perspective, I think.
I think it'll be United's. Will it be their last home game of the season as well?
No, they got 2. They've got to play Newcastle.
They got Newcastle midweek. Yeah. I've got Garnacho as well, who's he's I brought him in ages ago with this bench boost in mind, but it was back in like game week 32 or 33. But he's playing. I'm happy to play him. If he gets anything, it's a bit of a bonus. Not going to be picking him up now, so that's my 5th. And I got Haaland and Solanke at the moment up front. So my bench, which is pretty poor to say the least for a bench, I've got Neto in goal, so he has to go. That's for sure. I've got Mateta, Senesi, and Solanke, who they're the 4 players. Who don't?
You're gonna risk it with Gusto. Are you gonna just risk Gusto getting some minutes?
I think he'll get some. Just before he got injured, they were, a lot of people were saying he was their player of the season. Apart from Palmer, obviously. One of the players of the season. He was getting rave reviews, and then he got injured all of a sudden. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets his place back. I got to be honest. I think he's too good to sit on the bench. So even if he plays one of the 2 with Bournemouth at home in 38, I think he's worth holding on to. I don't. It's not hit material to take him out for another defender. I mean, who would I bring in anyway? I mean, all the options are pretty poor. So, so my current, if I was to go template, which is pretty boring, but if I was to go for the players I wanted to kind of go for, I think it would score the most points. It would be Petrovic, and then it would be Isak and Jackson, and then a defender. I don't know, whoever, Lewis Dunk, right? But I'm basically taking a -12 to get to the template, which
that feels like turning up to the party when someone's had all the cheddar off the cocktail sticks and there's only the pineapple chunks left, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's like that's what it feels like.
Not great.
That ship sailed about 3 weeks ago, mate. I think. I think you got to go. I think you got to go different. So I think you've got to get your punt in there for a start, haven't you?
I think so. Well, one small crumb is that I have got 6 million in the bank, and I'm not going to be bringing in an expensive player. I could get to Salah in game week 38 off someone if I'm, if I keep within, within budget. I could get Salah in, which would be a massive differential for game week 38. Yeah, are they home to Wolves? Home to Wolves. And Wolves against Man City. Do you know what? I'm not a football analyst or any kind of, but the amount of time Wolves gave Man City in between the lines to turn, like normally when Foden and Haaland pick the ball up, they get passed in with their back to goal, and normally the defenders are on him or the holding midfielders are on, and they get
pressed,
and they can't turn, and that's and they struggle to score. The Wolves defense just let them turn, and it happened the whole game. I couldn't believe what I was watching. It's like you're letting Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden, and Haaland turn 20 yards out and run at you. I just couldn't believe what I was watching. So I think that Salah move in game week 38, but I haven't even looked at Man City at home to West Ham, so maybe it's not the best move, but I think that's quite a move I like. I think he'd be a massive differential because I don't think many will be able to get to him. So that's the crumb of comfort I've got as differential for game week 38, albeit it is one game. But yeah, so in summary, I either take a -12 to get to the template, which doesn't sound great, to be honest.
The bench boost might not even score 12.
I'm definitely taking hits. I'm definitely taking at least a -8. I'm not keeping Mateta.
Yeah.
I'm not keeping Neto. I'm not keeping Senesi. The only one I'm tempted to potentially keep is Solanke home to Brentford. That's the only one I'm semi-tempted to keep. But then it means I would be turning down a -4 to go to Isak, Jackson, or João Pedro. So yes, don't know. With your ultra hat on, Rich, with your FPL coach hat on, with my target and 400k. I need to be very realistic now with my targets. I'd like to finish higher than 400k. Really, I don't particularly want to fall out the top 500k.
I mean, I think you could still you could still get top 250k with 2 amazing weeks, couldn't you? But the hit's going to hurt you. I mean, the 12-point hit is going to, what's that? It's worth about 40,000 places anyway, still, isn't it? Something like that. So I don't know. I'd just get some differentials in.
Oh, really?
I'd really look at ownership. I'd really look at ownership and look at the likes of João Pedro, look at the likes of Madueke, look at the likes of Richarlison, players that are all less than 20% owned. So if you're going to make the -12, get doublers by all means, but get guys who are going to make a big difference in your rank tier. So if you look at players in your rank tier who are below 20% owned at that sort of 400k level, there may be lower ownership on some of these guys. So Nicholas Jackson wasn't the reason that hurt you so badly last week. Was he was still only around 35% owned. So that's going to shoot up now, and therefore he's just going to be almost invisible in the top 100k. But obviously not owning him is a big risk, but there's always a chance he doesn't do anything. Didn't do anything for about 2/3 of a season.
JK Guna says I should go Onana, Wilson. He's another one, Wilson, if he's fit.
Wilson,
Pedro,
if the call on Wilson is good, I would look at these really high upside,
I like that,
high upside picks who've got a double. So Wilson and Pedro. Wilson instead of Isak, definitely. It's a really good shout, Guna, because of the ownership. Because then you'll suddenly find that he smashes it, and you're getting all those points against the field, all those points against your peers. Obviously, what you're hoping for is variance. You're not hoping that Wilson scores the same amount as Isak. You're hoping that Isak blanks and Wilson smashes it, and similarly, Richarlison scores and Bruno doesn't play at all. Those kinds that you want big variance, and you're going hunting it. But if you just go template, I just think you might go up like 50k, and it'll be like really meh.
I'll see how I wake up on Saturday morning. The sun is shining. If my coffee tastes good, the kids are not arguing and screaming and shouting, and I'm in a good mood. I'll see how I feel. I tend to completely wrongly make my transfer judgments based on how I feel on Saturday morning. So we'll see. Habayai suggests Mateta to Isak. We are currently building out the bench boost feature ahead of next season. But that is it from us for this week. Thank you so much to everyone who joined in the chat. Those who watch it back and those listening on the podcast version, your support is very, very much appreciated. We hope you all smash it. Game Week 37, massive week in the season for mini leagues and, personal ambition and everything else. So, hopefully we've given you a few different ideas, a few different tips on, how to manage your rank and a few low-owned players to consider and things as well. Rich, thank you so much. Where can people get hold of you?
At Rich Clarke FPL on X, Twitter.
And my Twitter handle is at FFH_Fergi. So this podcast and video will be in the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel with the podcast versions available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please press the like button. Remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. If you haven't done that, we would really, really, really like you to really just, if you've enjoyed our content over the season or over the seasons, and you listen on, you listen on a podcast version. If you could just hop into the store, just leave a review, leave us 5 stars. We would really, really appreciate it. It should only take you like 30 seconds of your time. We'll be back next week for our final episode of the season to look ahead to the big Game Week 38. In the meantime, we hope you have a great double Game Week 37, and may all your arrows be green. Good night, all.